Welcome to the Big City Balaclava pattern walkthrough. I have made so many versions of these because it is just addicting to make one that matches every outfit. Let's make that you. This is going to be super beginner friendly. Even if you've never picked up knitting needles before, I'm going to get as basic as how to do knit stitch. What you'll need to make this is 2 skeins of size 4 yarn. We're going to be holding the yarn double, so you do need 2, as well as 6.5mm circular needles and 5.5mm circular needles. These can be any length cord. Mine are about 16 inches, but really anything will work for this. Other tools include a tapestry needle, of course, a pair of scissors, and optionally a stitch holder. You can also use a different needle or a piece of yarn to hold your stitches, but I find this tool really helpful. Also a stitch marker. Again, you can use another piece of yarn to do this, but I have an actual little stitch marker here. And then if you also need help keeping track of your rows like I do, a little row counter can be really helpful as well. The last thing you'll need is a copy of my Big City Balaclava knitting pattern. It's going to be linked down below so you can grab your copy. This is a pattern walkthrough video, so I'm going to show you every technique that you need to make the balaclava, but for exact measurements, row counts, stitch counts, head over to the pattern and you'll find those there. Let's get started. Throughout the pattern, yarn is held double. That means you're going to be holding 2 strands of yarn together for the entire pattern, and when you knit through a stitch, you need to make sure you knit through both pieces of yarn and count them as 1 stitch. We start by making a slip knot, so make a loop by crossing your yarn over itself and then pulling a loop up through that circle there. This makes an adjustable slip knot that you can then slip onto your needle, starting with the 6.5mm circular needle. We're starting with the long tail cast on. Remember that the end of your yarn is called the tail and the yarn connected to the balls is the working yarn. The long tail cast on works by wrapping the tail around your left thumb, then sticking your needle underneath that tail, wrapping your working yarn around clockwise, then lifting the loop off your thumb and over the top of the needle to tighten and create the next stitch. Let's look at that again. So the needle is going underneath the yarn tail on your left thumb, wrapping the working yarn around clockwise, and then pulling the loop over and tightening. This is now 3 stitches on the needle. Continue this series of movements until you have cast on the right number of stitches. We're now done with that yarn tail, so make sure you keep it out of the way. We're going to start with a row of basic knit stitches. So holding the needle with your stitches on it in your left hand, take your right hand needle and insert it into the first stitch from left to right, then wrap your working yarn around it, pull it back through that first stitch and off the needle. Here's a look at that again, going in with the right hand needle from left to right and pulling yarn through and off the needle. This is a basic knit stitch. Reminder that you are holding a double, so go through both strands of yarn every time you do this, and you're going to continue across the entire row. Time to go to the second row, so put the needle that has your stitches on it in your left hand, and then again with the right hand needle. This time we're doing purls, so go in with your right hand needle from right to left, wrap your yarn around, and pull it back and off of the needle. So we're going in from right to left, wrapping around to pull that stitch off. It's basically a knit stitch, just backwards. This is called purling, and you're going to continue doing that in each stitch across the row. Continue alternating knit and purl rows. This is called the stockinette stitch, and it makes really nice V's and especially a nice texture since we're holding 2 different yarns together. I love how the colors turn out here. This is the top of the balaclava, and now we're going to start building the body, but first we need to keep these live stitches safe. So grab your stitch holder or another needle, and we're going to transfer them onto here. So all you're doing is picking up each of those stitches, not doing anything to them, and putting them straight onto a different needle so that you can hold them out of the way and we can get our needle back to start knitting the body. Once all of those stitches are on there, you can close up that stitch holder, and we're going to cut the yarn so that we can begin some new knitting, starting at the bottom right of this rectangle, going around the 3 sides like so. To do this, we need to pick up new stitches along each of these edges. So start with the bottom right and insert your 6.5mm needle into that first column of stitches. Grab your working yarn, wrap it around that needle, and pull it up through the column that you've just inserted into. This is all it takes to pick up a stitch. We're going to continue doing that down this whole column of stitches. So making sure that you're always inserting into the same row of stitches, you're going to go into the next one, push your needle through, wrap that working yarn around, and pull it up. This is now 2 stitches picked up onto your needle. As you keep going, you'll start to see more and more stitches line up on your needle like this. This is where the circular needle cord comes in handy. When you get to the end of this edge, pull the needle through a bit so that the picked up stitches are all on the cord, and you can then angle the needle towards the back stitches that you have on the holder. We're going to knit these stitches normally. You can knit them straight off of the stitch holder or place them onto another needle if that works better for you, but this is just going to be a basic knit stitch to get all of these onto the needle. So again, going in through left to right, pulling the yarn through and off all the way across this back row of stitches. As you get to the end, we now need to angle to go towards the left side and pick up some stitches there. Whatever you were using to hold your stitches can be put away. Then again, pull your needle through so that all of your stitches that have been picked up are on the cord. You can see the right and the back side have been picked up now, and we're going to angle that needle down at the left side to do the same thing. So again, making sure you're always going into the same column of stitches, insert your needle, wrap the working yarn around, and continue picking up stitches down at that left side. Now when you pull the needle through and put all the stitches onto your cord, you can see that there are stitches picked up on both right, left, and back sides of this rectangle, and you are all set up to begin knitting the body of your balaclava. So we're going to start with a row of purl stitches, just purling every stitch in this row. You may need to pull the cord of your needle out a bit in between stitches throughout the row so that you can keep working around this circular shape effectively. That's totally fine. Do that wherever you need to do to get all the way around for this purl row, and then go into a knitting row. So again, we're doing the stockinette stitch here, going to be alternating between knit and purl rows, and as you keep going, you'll see the top of the balaclava start to form. This is going to sit on top of your head, and we're making the edges that will come down around the ears. As you keep going, it will start looking like this, and you can see the whole body of the balaclava being knit. Next up, we're going to use the backwards loop cast on to add some stitches that can connect the two sides of the face together and create a seamless circle for the neck and the face ribbing. This is very similar to the long tail cast on. Take your working yarn, wrap it around your left thumb, place your needle underneath that yarn, and then simply pull it to tighten a new stitch onto your needle. Here's a look at that again, just continuing to wrap the yarn around your thumb, place your needle underneath it, and tighten a new stitch around the needle. We're about to start knitting in a circle, so grab a stitch marker to mark that this is the beginning of your round. I have a stitch marker here. You can also do this with a safety pin or just tie a piece of yarn around your needle at this point to mark it. We're going to begin knitting the circle neck, so if you need to, pull your cord through between some stitches so that you can get your needles angled correctly to make this seamless circle here. We're just going to start doing a basic rib stitch. All this is alternating between knit and purl stitches, so instead of doing the same stitch for the whole row, you're going to do one knit stitch and then one purl stitch. This is going to make some really nice stretchy ribbing for the neck. After a few stitches, you will have connected the whole circle of the neck and you'll be able to see the face hole starting to form. Continue doing this, and then once you get to the stitches that you cast on with the backwards loop cast on method, you're going to knit and purl those just as you normally would. Just make sure that this little line is on the bottom of the needle, not on the top. This is going to make sure that everything is lined up and doesn't get twisted as you keep going. Normal knit and purl movements, it might be a bit awkward on this first row, but as you build up more, it will continue knitting just like normal and it'll get a lot easier. Every time you reach your stitch marker, you have completed a round, which is like completing a row, and then just pass it over onto your right needle. You want this stitch marker to stay in the same place so that it can continue marking the beginning and ends of your rows, and you always know that that is at the same place as you continue shaping the neck. Once you finish your ribbing rows, you can really get a good look at what the shape of the balaclava is going to be, and we're going to go into a tubular cast off. So you can take away your stitch marker, and we're going to need to cut a piece of yarn that's approximately 3 times the length of the area that we're casting off. So I'm just kind of loosely figuring out how much 3 times the bottom of the balaclava's neck is. Snip the working yarn here and insert that into a tapestry needle. We're going to use this to take all the stitches off of our needles and finish them off in a really stretchy way so that you can actually get this over your head. First, pull your tapestry needle through the first stitch knitwise. That means from left to right, like if you were inserting your needle for a knit stitch. Pull the yarn all the way through and pull that stitch off of the needle. Then we're going to skip over the first stitch and go purlwise, so right to left, through the second stitch and pull the yarn all the way through. Head back to the first stitch and go through that one purlwise as well. So putting the tapestry needle through from right to left and pulling all of the yarn through. Then this one, we're going to pull that stitch off of the needle as well. Find the space between the first and second stitches and send your tapestry needle through them from the back, pulling the yarn all the way through. This repositions it for the last stitch, which is to put it knitwise through the second stitch. So from left to right, pulling the yarn to the back. You're repeating these 4 steps to get all of the stitches off the needle. So first step, knitwise through the first stitch and pull it off. Second step, purlwise through the second stitch and pull the yarn all the way through. The third step is to go through the first stitch, purlwise, and pull that stitch off. And then the final 4th step is to reposition your yarn by pushing your needle from the back between the first 2 stitches and finally pushing it through the second stitch, knitwise, and that sets you up to begin the pattern all over again. I know this seems complicated and like a lot of steps, but I promise once you do it a few times, you get a hang of the pattern and realize that it's just kind of the same things over and over again. I used to hate this stitch and avoid it as often as I could, but I actually find it kind of relaxing now, so lean into it. As you keep going, you should eventually be left with just one stitch left on your needle, and all you need to do with that is insert your needle through it purlwise, pull the yarn through to tighten it, and then you can just take it off your needle like so and weave in the end to secure it. All that means is weaving the end of your thread into the inside of the balaclava a few times and then cutting the end to hide it. Grab your 5.5mm circular needles. It's time to do some face ribbing. So we need to pick up stitches all around this face hole here. It's going to be the same method as used on the top of the balaclava. Starting at the bottom left, find the first column of stitches, stick your needle through, then use a new piece of working yarn to pull up and continue doing this all the way up the left side of the balaclava. You'll begin to see a bunch of stitches sitting on your needle, and when you get to the top, you can pull your needle through to use the cord and continue angling around the entire circle of the face. Keep going, and this is what it should look like when you have stitches picked up around every side of the face. And we're going to begin doing a basic rib stitch. Remember to insert a stitch marker so that you know where this round begins. We're going to be knitting in a circle again. Basic 1x1 rib stitch, just like the neck. So that is a knit stitch and then a purl stitch, alternating knit stitches and purl stitches around the entire round. Just like with the neck, anytime you come back to your stitch marker, just slip it onto your right hand needle and continue going so that it can mark where your rounds begin and end. Once you've finished all of those rib rows, we're going to use the tubular cast off again, so you can remove your stitch marker. Use your working yarn to loosely measure 3 times around the face and cut your yarn there, insert it into a tapestry needle to begin working the tubular cast off again. If you didn't memorize the pattern with the neck cast off, you will now. We're going to do the same 4 steps again. So first going in knitwise and pulling through to take off the first stitch, then going through purlwise onto the second stitch, purlwise through the first stitch and taking that one off, then repositioning the yarn by pushing it through between the first and second stitches, and finally going knitwise into the second stitch to begin the pattern all again. You're going to do this around the entire front of the face, and when you get to just one stitch, pull your needle through purlwise and weave the end in on the inside to get everything nice and secure and tucked away. This is a good chance to weave in any other ends that are on the inside as well. Just attach them to your tapestry needle, weaving them in until they feel secure and cutting nice and close. Pull it right side out to reveal your finished balaclava. Look at that! I hope this tutorial was helpful in learning all these different techniques. Let me know, is this your first knitting project? Are you already a pro? I would of course love to see your recreation, so tag me at a.lexicary on Instagram so I can have a look. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day.